Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. We'll go ahead and get started in about 30-ish seconds while we wait for folks to jump in, but excited to have you join us today.
All right, everybody. I think we're good to go ahead and get started. I appreciate you all joining us today. My name is Aaron Hark. I'm one of the co-owners of Maxient. We're here to talk with our friends at RealResponse about how we can integrate their product with Maxient for managing hazing incidents effectively. I'm going to take a quick look at the agenda that we're going to go over for the order of today's webinar. Obviously, I'm going to talk for a few minutes. We're going to let you know who the other folks are on the call. Going to talk briefly about the Stop Campus Hazing Act, and then we'll look at RealResponse, kind of how it's in use currently across the country, how it improves reporting. We're going to speak with two users at schools that use both RealResponse and Maxient and how this has worked on their campus. And then we're going to give you a quick demo of the integrated solution, the integration that our two companies have built for our products. Before we go into the Stop Campus Hazing Act, I want to talk really briefly, actually, before we introduce everyone, that we, Maxient as a company, have been very pleased over the years to bring you integrations that help Maxient to work seamlessly with other products that augment our feature set. To me, RealResponse represents a significant reporting channel benefit. We think of reporting channels as the way information comes into the system. And I think particularly it's of note when we're talking about allegations of hazing. So with the recent passage of the Stop Campus Hazing Act, I was talking with David, the owner of RealResponse, and it felt like a really good opportunity, a timely opportunity for us to introduce this integration to our customer base. We did talk about it at MaxFest last summer. For those of you who were in attendance at that, you may have kind of gotten a preview of it there. Specifically with hazing, when we talk about reporting in general, let's say, I think about the fact that with hazing, there's what I would conceptualize as an activation energy, sort of a hurdle that a student often has to overcome to make a report that's significant. To me, it's very different than many of the reports that come through our software, through the web-based forms on a daily basis, things that can kind of be composed in one setting. This thing happened in the residence hall, I'm going to write it up, kind of start to finish, and submit it. Often with hazing, you've got one or more impacted individuals, and it may be a real challenge to work up that nerve or to get to that point where you're comfortable kind of testing the waters with somebody from the institution to figure out, is this something that I'm comfortable telling somebody else about? And so the way that RealResponse works as far as that anonymous reporting with the ability to go back and forth to develop a good record before we move to an investigation or before we move to a case, I think is particularly compelling. And that channel that they offer here is something that we don't offer in Maxient, and that's one of the things that we found very enticing about doing an integration with this company. For the Maxient administrators that are on this call, I want you to know two things here. First off, if your athletics department is already using RealResponse, this integration is free for you. So we would encourage you to reach out to RealResponse, get it turned on so that the issues that may surface in athletics can easily be routed to your office when it's appropriate. If your campus is already using RealResponse campus-wide, or if you're intrigued by this as another reporting channel for your community, similarly, I would encourage you to reach out to them directly to RealResponse to have the integration either activated or to discuss it more. The folks on this call represent a wide swath of the audience here. We've got student conduct folks, we have folks from athletics, really all across the university. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Let's jump in and talk about who our panelists are. You all introduce yourselves.
Guess I'll go first. I'm on the left there. Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Gregory. My day job is Dean of Students and Vice Provost of Student Life at Texas Tech University, and been a longtime Maxient user. And at Texas Tech, we've been using RealResponse now for over a couple of years. And so really looking forward to the benefits of having the integrations. And I'll talk more about our experience at Texas Tech here in a bit.
And my name is Ileana Melendez. I serve as Assistant Vice President and Dean of Students here at Coastal Carolina University in South Carolina. Been here for, today or tomorrow is my 2-year anniversary. So excited about that. But I've been a Maxient user for a really long time, and then found RealResponse here at Coastal. And so excited to talk to you more about how we are using that here as well.
Thanks, Ileana. Congratulations on the work anniversary. Aaron?
Hey, I'm third on there, but I feel like I already introduced myself. So I'm Aaron Hark. I'm one of the co-founders of Maxient.
Awesome. And my name is David Chadwick. I'm the founder and CEO of RealResponse. Appreciate the kind introduction, Aaron. As a side note, we are super excited about the opportunity to work with you guys in a formal capacity. When we started to have conversations with folks like Matt and Ileana and others outside of the athletic space, the immediate reaction was, you guys need to integrate with Maxient. They are the quote unquote gold standard of the industry, and getting to know you and Candace has just been a pleasure to get to work with such an amazing company that frankly we would love to emulate as well. But my quick background, I'm a former student athlete. For those of you that have met me in person, it's very obvious that I played basketball because I'm 6'9". Started the company really with one simple goal, and that was to solve a challenge that I experienced firsthand, where mainly I saw student athletes frustrated about their experiences and not feeling like they had a way to speak up and to use their voice and to share their feedback and their needs and their concerns with their administration. So it's been an amazing journey over the last 10 years to watch it evolve beyond our initial collegiate roots. But really, our focus is simple. We want to make two-way anonymous communication simpler, create efficiencies for people to be able to come forward when they're sharing concerns, and then make the people on this call's life easier. So when you're looking into these claims, to be able to respond to them in a more efficient way. So more details to come, and excited about the opportunity to take a deeper dive with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you all for being with us. Let me jump in and talk to you a little bit about the Stop Campus Hazing Act. We could do an entire separate webinar just on that. So we're not gonna do that here today, but what we're gonna do is kind of hit the high points. So this law was signed. This was signed into law actually just really a few weeks ago, just before the holiday break on December 23rd. It's a legislative effort to combat hazing at colleges and universities, basically by means of increased awareness. So in addition to requiring the publication of information on institutional anti-hazing policies and hazing prevention programs, the Act is really further mandating two key and distinct reporting requirements. So the first one is an expanded scope of the Clery report that we're all familiar with to include hazing. So beginning this past January 1, so about a month ago, reported incidents of hazing are to be compiled as part of each institution's broader annual security report, the ASR, the Clery report. You're expected to include that in the report, beginning with the one that will be published for calendar year 2026. So that's kind of looking back at the current year. Hazing incidents, as defined in detail by the Act, and it gives several but non-exhaustive examples in there, can be committed by individuals or groups, so long as the incidents are in the course of an initiation into, an affiliation with, or the maintenance of membership in a student organization. So what's fascinating here is that the student organization doesn't necessarily need to be established or recognized by the institution, just so long as 2 or more of its members are students there. It qualifies for reporting purposes. So Maxient, the hazing incidents, rather, I should say, the hazing incidents are to be included in the annual security report. and are limited to that same geography that we use for Clery, the same thing you use for all the other stats. Maxient has already added support for this to your Clery reportability menu. We did that a few weeks ago around the time you were coming back for the new year. So go on to the next slide here. The other requirement that it is imparting to us is creating the requirement for a new campus hazing transparency report. So beginning this coming July 1st, any affirmative findings, can you get the slide to advance? There we go, bingo. So beginning this coming July 1st, any affirmative findings of hazing against a registered student organization have to be compiled into publication of a special new report called the Campus Hazing Transparency Report. And that's going to be made publicly available on the institution's website no later than December 23rd of this year. So exactly 1 year to the day after the act was signed. And you have to update that at least twice each year thereafter, and it should include all the new qualifying data since the last update. So basically a running log of these things for public consumption. You got to maintain it for 5 years after that. So it's not limited to the Clery geography for this. All right. For each, let me see here 1 second, make sure I'm don't want to get ahead of myself here on the slides, but yeah, go ahead and jump to that next one. So kind of the rundown of the things that have to be included in that. And this is, again, we're just trying to hit the high points without delving into this in too much detail. The name of the organization, but you're not supposed to publicly identify individuals in it. Description of the violation, were alcohol or drugs involved? Not necessarily whether it was illegal use at the time or in violation of your policies, simply were they involved in it. The institution's findings and any sanctions that were placed on the student organization. And then there's several key dates that they're looking for, things like when the incident occurred, when the investigation was initiated, and a few other items from that. So keep in mind, again, the items published in this transparency report are not limited to the same geographic scope as the annual security report. So that's kind of your quick overview of it. Like I said, Maxient has already started to put some pieces in place in our software to deal with this, and we're adding more in the coming weeks. So stay tuned in the system for announcements on that, things that we're going to have in there that we think will help you out with the transparency report part of this. There we go. I'm going to turn it over to David now to talk a little bit more about the two-way reporting with RealResponse.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Aaron, and for that overview. I know that the Campus Hazing Act brings obviously some new education and learnings, but we're frankly excited about a much-needed initiative coming into place for addressing this area. So at this point, we want to shift to providing you all with a high-level overview of how RealResponse works. And again, this focus being on two-way reporting. Not just the intake of the information, but the ability to go back to the reporter for having further dialogue, questions answered, guiding people to resources, et cetera. Before we do that, though, some of you probably have no idea who RealResponse is, and that's fine. This is the logo explosion, right? We work with a lot of different groups across many different industries. Got our start in college athletics, obviously, but now have expanded to many groups leveraging our system with the broader campus ecosystem, which has been amazing. We work with many Olympic national governing bodies, generally for safe sport reporting. If you're not familiar with that term, that's usually sexual misconduct within the Olympic movement. We work with a lot of professional sports teams and clubs for many different use cases, everything from Major League Baseball for violations of their league policies to NASCAR with impermissible race car parts. We work with, as you can see, professional sports franchises too. We're a company divided. We work with both the Chiefs and the Eagles heading into the Super Bowl in a few weeks, so that'll be exciting. And then we've seen fraternity and sorority life national offices bring on our system, generally with chapter conduct reporting and other types of issues that might be going on in that space. And then many youth groups as well. One very prominent example that we are incredibly proud about is Scouting America, formerly Boy Scouts of America. In light of some of the things that they've gone through, we're incredibly humbled now to be their child protection reporting platform. So I'll tell you just from the top, across all the different groups that we work with, what we love the most is the ability to stay true to our mission, right? Which is providing that safe and accessible way for people to be able to speak up without a fear of retaliation, but also for the recipient and these organizations to have a better way to monitor what was going on and to be able to respond in a timely way to, frankly, not only protect the health and safety, but also the integrity of the organization as well. So let's set the tone with this slide, right? This is the world that we live in. This is us. People are constantly staring at their mobile devices. It's the quick and efficient consumption of information. I know I'm speaking at the choir. All you guys have to do is look out your window, especially your students, and they're probably staring at their mobile device right now. joke these people are probably talking to each other. What we believe as a company, though, is in the last 10 years, the ways that people like to communicate have evolved exponentially, right? Don't need to convince you of that. What has not, though, necessarily evolved with that is when it comes time to sharing more sensitive and confidential information. The expectation is still we pick up the phone and call hotlines, or we fill out a web form, or other types of more traditional means of communicating. And this can create a lot of tension. Number one, if the reporter is using those means and not providing enough information in their initial outreach for a lot of different reasons. My personal opinion is maybe it's the shorter attention span, right? It's the TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram society where taking a lot of time to be thoughtful with that initial report is not very attractive. But number two, it creates tension if the person is anonymous, which we see and hear a lot. People don't feel comfortable putting their name on their initial outreach. And again, it's a very vague or incomplete report. And the receiving end is then very frustrated that they don't have enough information to actually act on. So what we are solving is those two challenges. And number one, meeting people where they are, making communication more friendly by leveraging the communication, the channels that they're doing on a daily and probably an hourly basis, right? Texting is the foundation of that. I'm going to venture to guess either someone will send a text during this Zoom call or someone may be texting right this very second and multitasking, which is fine, right? It's just the world that we live in. WhatsApp has become the global messaging platform where outside of just a few countries, you can use that to be able to message, which is truly amazing. So as you think about in your world, students that are traveling beyond the US, international students that are here on campus, WhatsApp is a great way for them to be able to communicate. And then email in the scenarios where maybe someone has a larger submission, more details, more attachments, et cetera. Email is a very good place to be able to send that versus text or email. So as we think about this whole focus on meeting people where they are, where our company is thriving is allowing them to use communication channels that they're familiar with, but this is what's key, not having to have their contact information tagged to it. So they can send a text without having their phone number, or a WhatsApp message saying same thing. So it's a very comfortable setting. It's very engaging for them, but then you all, when you receive it, you have the ability to have further dialogue with that person and to be able to ask further questions, gather evidence, point to resources, et cetera. This is a juxtaposed view, right? So the left side, let's put ourselves as a pretend reporter. That's the student or whoever it may be on campus. They're reporting an incident of hazing. Again, they're in a very comfortable setting. This is their messaging app. They're doing this frequently nonstop. You all on the right end are operating from RealResponse. So picture this as being from your device, your computer, your tablet, your phone. You have the ability to intake this anonymous report, and we'll go into more detail in just a second, and do things like control users, who has access to it, permission it, label it, send it to Maxient, obviously. But what I want to focus on is this ability to follow up with the person. So you type up your submission. Thank you so much for reaching out. Can you please provide more information? You're now able to engage back and forth with that individual while, as long as he or she so chooses to remain anonymous, to gather evidence, ask questions, point to resources, et cetera. And again, in this setting that this person is very, very comfortable with. So as you think about the two challenges that RealResponse is aiming to solve, number one, it's making it easier for people to be able to report, making sure that we capture every single concern that might be on campus, right? That's our goal. But number two, making it more efficient, especially when they're anonymous, when you guys are investigating and following up with it. And this two-way communication is what's so important by being able to meet people where they are and to gather the additional information that you might need to be able to act on. So that is a high-level overview, but we are frankly incredibly blessed and incredibly thankful to have two people on this call that have used both Maxient and RealResponse and can speak firsthand to some of the efficiencies they've seen, and to certainly speak from a peer, more of a peer seat versus what the state that I would take. But Matt, I'd love to start with you. You obviously have been working at Texas Tech for a long time, but also dealt with the conduct world for a long time as well. Can you speak to our audience just around how you've seen maybe traditionally hazing reports come in, or other types of reports as well, and some of the challenges that have been around that, but also firsthand the example of how RealResponse was able to help you address a hazing situation that came through?
Sure, absolutely. We've offered anonymous reporting, we at universities, not just Texas Tech, but many of our colleagues across the country have offered anonymous reporting for quite some time now. And for us, we would rely upon a Maxient report form, usually on a variety of different topics, but there would be an option for someone to not submit their name, phone number, contact information, just report the report anonymously. Usually, most of those reports that we'd receive that were anonymous, we could do very little with them. We couldn't verify information. We couldn't even identify particular student or group or groups of students that were of concern or what was going on. In no way really to go back and identify, maybe other than an IP address that was submitted from, but who the individual was to be able to seek clarifying information. And so that would usually just result in frustration on the part of the conduct office or the dean of students team. And oftentimes in our fraternity partners, like the undergraduate leadership of a given chapter or the advisory board of a given chapter, if the chapter was known. And it was just enough to be frustrating that we really couldn't respond or really couldn't address their concerns. So having this ability to be able to go back and forth with an individual. And what we know is when someone has worked up the courage to do something about a concern that they have, that they want to report something, there's oftentimes a lot of thought that goes into that and building themselves up to say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do something about it. And there is a window of opportunity for university to be able to go back and forth with that individual because we know they have worked up their interest in trying to say something and reach out and report it. So, we've had to navigate that as an institution about having our staff available and looking at the nature of the report coming in and determining, is this something that can't wait until, morning of the next day or business day to be able to engage with, or is this important enough to us that we have to assign a team member on the back end in RealResponse to be able to go back and forth with that individual right then and there. And we know from practice that reports that have waited a long time, or long time being 48 hours or so, there's some reporting parties that have come forward who then decide after a few hours, say, hey, I really didn't want to report something. So there is a sweet spot in terms of being able to respond. And for us to be able to go back and forth with that individual and seek those clarifications. And I give this example. I had a fraternity that I was working with. We got a report in through our student organization report form, through our reporting platform that we call Raiders Report. And they said, basically, XYZ fraternity is doing drugs. That's it. There was no way to be able to go back and forth with that reporting party. So being the good campus partners we are, we went ahead and gave that to the organization, to the chapter, and said, FYI, this is the report we got. This is all we got. We know there might not be much you can do about it, but we thought minimally it was worth sharing with you and could result, in a conversation at a chapter meeting about drug use, or having our prevention education department come in and do a quick presentation about drugs and things like that. But it was largely frustrating to the chapter advisor because this was something that they've actually spent a lot of time on already. And to get this report without much detail really was not helpful to them. So we have since been able to adopt RealResponse and build that in as a part of our reporting platform, where we chose in our rollout, and I kind of call it our soft rollout, where we just replaced our anonymous reporting button to direct to RealResponse. And so now anybody who selects that report will go straight to RealResponse and have that option no matter what the person is trying to report. And then on the back end, we have staff who are in the RealResponse platform, have been trained on it, and we can assign a lead to that report. So it's very helpful for us to be able to connect the right person on our team to be able to engage with the report, depending upon what is being presented. And now we can go back and say, you said XYZ fraternity. Can you share, did this happen at the lodge? Did this happen at a member's house? Names of persons who were present. Was anybody forced? What drugs are we talking about? And go through those clarifying questions and get much more detail and a richer report. I was telling David earlier on, providing some qualitative feedback after our first probably 6 months of adoption. And we had a hazing report come in with an organization. And after the staff member who took the lead went back and forth through RealResponse, we ended up having about 7 transcribed pages of detailed notes detailing the alleged hazing, persons involved, multiple locations, the behaviors described in detail, and we were able to go back and forth and clarify anything. And it was a very rich document that, and we have a collaborative partnership process here that we were able to go in partnership with the national headquarters, the local chapter leadership, and our team in fraternity and sorority life, and the conduct office to be able to go and have a coordinated collaborative response to that particular allegation. So it was so rich, and that was one of our first ones that we got. And it was a night and day different from some of the reports we would get that would just have one sentence, maybe, to 7 transcribed pages of detailed information about an allegation. So it's been very helpful to us at Texas Tech. And we have broadened it to include, as I said, reporting options on anonymous reporting for all kinds of other type of reports at Texas Tech, including Title IX. So it's been wonderful for us.
I appreciate it, Matt. We're already getting questions, which is great. So we'll do our best to bring those up and answer those as we get through the presentation. Matt, one that came through, I wanted to go ahead and throw to you. Do you encounter any issues with people still being hesitant because they don't actually believe it's anonymous, or do you have to work through that skepticism at all?
Yeah, absolutely. That will happen from time to time, and there is some skepticism, and we have to assure that this really is an anonymous portal. What we see is a RealResponse number that we're interacting with. We don't know your name, your number. Anything you divulge would be up to you of what you want to share. So there is absolutely a period of rapport building and trust building that happens early on in that the first exchange back and forth with the individual who took the time to report. I think we've only had maybe 1 or 2 in the time that we've been using it out of probably up to 40 reports now, or 50 reports that have come through RealResponse, where the person just said, you know what, I've thought more about this, but I don't feel right doing this. Thank you, but I'm not interested anymore. The vast majority have felt comfortable enough knowing that they're interacting with a human, and that we're not pushing, saying, tell us your name, who are you, give us a phone number. We can do this all through the platform. That has helped us to build that rapport with that individual. So it's been great for us.
We have seen historically a similar level of hesitation, even with our online reporting. Like early on, the question is, well, wait a minute, if we put a form out there on the website, we're going to get flooded with these things. We're going to hear about so much more stuff. Some of it maybe we don't want to hear about, but it's like somehow going to open the reporting floodgates. And we've told people over the years, it doesn't really happen. That's not what we've seen, and that remains true. So I kind of see an analogy there in terms of the concern about whether it will be accepted as truly anonymous or not. You've got to get over that a little bit with the campus, but probably much easier to do than initially feared.
And we've seen a lot of creative tactics as a part of orientation, people putting a QR code on the screen and then having folks test it in real time and reinforcing, we really don't know where this is coming from. So there's a lot of different tactics that we've seen folks leverage that have been very efficient. But it's a common question, right? People are naturally going to be skeptical. It's interesting. They use technology in other ways in ways that like scratch my head. And then with this, they're a little more cautious. But to Matt's point, once you start to engage with the person, communicate back and forth, they quickly see, wow, they really don't know who I am or my phone number. Matt, that was great. I appreciate it. Ileana, I'd love for you to provide a similar background just on how you guys have leveraged the systems together and some of the ways that you've seen hazing in other types of areas relevant for Coastal.
Yeah. So we, one of the key partnerships, which led us to RealResponse was with athletics for us and our campus. And so I made the effort, I guess I should say, in reaching out to athletics, and me and one of my assistant deans went and talked to every one of our teams on campus. And so it's a little over 500 students that we met with in the fall. And that was simply just because one of the key things is our students talk to each other, right? And so it's about 500 students that were already familiar with RealResponse. They understood that it was a two-way anonymous reporting platform. They knew how to use it. I just needed to let them know that they could use our number for different things outside of just athletics, right? And so we did that. We went and talked to them. We saw a huge increase in the number of athletes that just reached out to our office. But one that's really kind of stands out to me is we had an athlete who reached out on behalf of a group of athletes that were concerned about some of the interactions and things that they were observing amongst their team. And so they shared a lot of things that were possibly Title IX, possible hazing. And so the ability to be able to have that exchange with the student and ask, who else have you reported this to? You know, we just need to be able to know if you've shared this information with anyone else. What else could you provide to us? We understand that you want to maintain anonymity, but if you have had conversations with others, please let us know. They quickly let us know what team they were talking about, who they were, and they said, I've already reported. I just wanted to make sure that I reported it here as well to make sure something is done and that it's addressed, right? And so the beauty about us and athletics having RealResponse is that, David, you know, one of my first questions to you is, does this talk to Maxient? And so now that they do, you know, that lovely little feature of merging your IRs, once it's in the system, we could merge it all together and it's all in one case. And so everybody can work within that case once we've closed it out and addressed it in RealResponse, right? Because at some point it's going to go into our workflow for Maxient and we're going to work through that process. The really nice thing, it allowed us to quickly react and get information from the student, but also address the issues that were happening, right? Turned out coaching staff was aware. We followed up with coaching staff. Where are you? They needed some assistance. They were in the process of reaching out to different folks to get that assistance. So we met them halfway and we're able to provide that a little bit quicker for them. I think the other thing that we've seen, so we launched, when our office launched it, we launched it in February. It was a soft launch, but it was for all of campus. And so our workflows were going to be really important, right? How we labeled things, who was in the system and who was trained on it. And so we just utilized our BIT team for that because they're certified. And so they're the folks that have access to the system and they're going to be the lead on a case if it's pertaining to their department. And so that's been really wonderful to have because folks now know how to use it. We've had some faculty and staff use it as well. So that's also key and important in letting them know. It really helps us fill that gap, right, of being able to continue that conversation, which, you know, for anonymous reporting through Maxient, we don't have that, right? We just receive that information once, but now we have an avenue to redirect them if that's what they want. Talking to students at orientation will shift for me this year as well. I'm going to give them a demonstration because I think a lot of them are like, is it really, you're going to be able to pull my information? And we really can't, you know, and that's another beautiful thing about that. But this year, we're going to shift in demonstrating that for them. So hopefully that will help provide some more comfort with that. But thus far, I mean, it's been wonderful. But again, athletics was a key campus partner for us because they were already used to it. So we had a group of 500 plus students that could help us educate their peers on how to use it and for what.
Ileana, I think that's a great example. And obviously athletics, being a former student athlete, I can attest to this. Sometimes athletics is on its own island. And one of the things that we heard immediately from this integration that we appreciated from you guys was the ability to better communicate, all be on the same page, operate out of one system, et cetera. So I appreciate you sharing that example. Matt and Ileana, we've gotten a few questions that I think would be great for you guys to answer through the chat. One being this: does either campus have an amnesty policy / practice, and has RealResponse been integrated? And if so, could you share your experience?
I'll jump in, Ileana.
Yeah, we do have a medical amnesty or drug. We just renamed it. It's alcohol and drug amnesty policy. And so we do have that. And we communicate that to our students at orientation as well. I do that. This, regardless of where the report's coming from, they will fall under that amnesty policy when they identify themselves, right? And so I think That's what I've told them. That's how we've extended that to our incoming students. And we're in the process of revamping that policy now to incorporate avenues on how to report. I think the Stop Hazing Act reminded us of that, because those are the things that we currently have in that policy. And so I was like, oh, we should probably put that in the amnesty policy as well. So we're gonna edit that along with a few other policies that we were like, that should be in there as well. So that's how we do it. I don't know if you have anything to add, Matt.
Very similar. We have done some training with our student organizations, our FSL councils, about our policy. And, as a part of our policy, and I think like many others, has to be a self-report. So we've had some back and forth about what is a self-report, and it's ultimately someone who's in group, takes the time and effort to report and bring up the concerns. So, in the real response report, that would be something we would ask, is like, are you a new member? Are you a member of this organization? Are you an advisor? Especially if they bring up, I would like to request amnesty as a part of this report. It wouldn't be something that we would normally put out there as a part of the exchange with the individual in real response, but absolutely we would consider it in line with our policy.
And I should add, our policy does cover individuals as well as student organizations for amnesty. So.
Yeah. A couple of questions I'll address quickly, because I want to leave time to showing the integration in greater detail. What if there's a criminal component to things that are submitted? We do cover all of that in our terms and conditions and privacy policy, specifically if there's a judge order subpoena or some type of report that could have immediate implications for someone's health or safety. There are obviously those edge cases that we could potentially need to reveal that information. Another question was, will students' phone numbers be known if they utilize real response? No, and that's the value, right? Is they can communicate without having their phone number attached to what they're submitting as well. And yeah, those were the few big ones. So we still have more coming in, so we'll leave some time at the end, but I want to make sure that we have the opportunity.
David, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick. Someone asked in the PD question. So our PD on our campus is a part of our BIT. And so they were trained in real response. They're in there as well, just like they're in Maxient. And so that kind of takes care of that too.
I'll give a slightly different perspective. Our PD is not trained in real response and not in the real response team. So what we do with them is, when we're interacting with that person, we will tell them that if they would like to report a crime, to contact whether it's the local jurisdiction, whether it's the Texas Tech Police Department or our city police, depending upon where they live and where it happened. But we will provide that option to them. Our police has told us that most real response reports are not going to be helpful because they need a complainant.
And I'll just add quickly, man, we've seen a lot where that complainant information is not available immediately. And then after having several back and forth, especially in the Title IX world, we hear a lot about that, and people better understanding due process, then they're more likely to name those folks moving forward too, which is extremely helpful. So yeah, you're spot on. Aaron, anything you want to add to that before we shift to more of a live demonstration of the integration, or other questions you see that you want to address at this point?
No, I think we're good. Actually, I'll add just one more thing. We talked about several use cases on there. I know from looking at the attendee list and looking at Maxient users, we have a number of users that are also in the HR sphere with our software. So not specifically student affairs, but looking more at the institution as a whole. And I would add that this is one of the more compelling I guess reporting channels that we've seen. I know that there are other products out there, obviously partial to this one because it integrates with Maxient, but I think that the use cases for real response go well beyond hazing, like we're talking about here today, to some of the other ones that are being discussed, and to perhaps like compliance hotline uses, things like that as well.
That's great. All right, so let's jump into the demo now. So a common question we get when real response is being evaluated is, who's going to have access, right? And what's that going to look like? And the way that we have our system set up is you can have different levels of administrator access. So you have your initial intake triage team. Those are the folks that get notified if something comes in. You get a notification via an email, you get a notification via text message letting you know there's a new report via real response. Typically, folks have several different offices as that initial intake team. It could be conduct, it could be Title IX, et cetera. Then you could have a long list of other options of people who maybe don't have initial access, but could be looped in on a case-by-case basis. We like to call them the domain experts on standby, right? If it falls into that person's purview, they're the expert. We have the ability to loop them in, which I'll show you in just a second. The only reason this could change is if the reporter categorized their report in a certain way. So if they did say this is a Title IX sexual misconduct concern, we could change the routing rules. I know everyone's familiar with the term routing rules, right? So it goes just to that Title IX office. So they're the ones that can then block off and wall off access to their group, because obviously other offices may not need to know about that as well. So this is an important first step, but what's great is you have all these different administrators that can operate out of the same system, communicate as needed, be in the same view of what's going on, and follow up on the specific reports. So if a report did come in, like in this example here, I'm aware of a serious hazing incident that occurred over the weekend. One thing I want to focus, because we already got this question in chat, was auto replies. You would have the ability to customize your auto reply that's sent back to the person immediately after they submit their report. We have a lot of examples, Ileana, Matt being two of many, that could show you how they presented their auto reply. But a couple of boxes you're going to want to check, because some of you may be thinking this right now. Am I going to have to monitor this 24 hours a day? Or what happens if something comes in the middle of the night, or if it's an emergency? You want to make sure you have things like this, right? Number one, acknowledging it. Thank you for contacting our platform. If this is an emergency, please contact the police department at this number or call 911. We appreciate you reaching out and bringing this to our attention. Please note that our office hours are, and you could put them in there, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. Now, you could choose to respond outside those hours, just like you may choose to respond to a work email. But for the most part, that helps reinforce of the how and why this should be used and when to expect a response. And then obviously we take each response seriously, report seriously. Someone from our team may respond to you via response. I want to pause here quickly, and Ileana, Matt, give you the chance to speak up, because one of the most common questions we get, am I going to be inundated? Am I going to get tons of report? Am I opening up the floodgate now for people to report? Have you guys seen a significant uptick in reports? And if not, like, how have you seen the efficiency of dealing with what comes through?
We have not. It's not like everybody's sitting there at their computer waiting. Ooh, a new avenue to report, right? I think it was Aaron's point earlier. What we have learned is that our auto response was another method of educating the reporter. Right. Because I think one of the first reports we got, and we still laugh about it in the office, was there's a car parked in the electronic charging spot, and my car is an electronic vehicle and I would like to park there. And so, not appropriate. This is not what this is meant for, right? Everybody has that Maxient report too, if you're like, oh, wow, you wanted to tell us that. And so we used our auto response for that, so that we can also begin to educate them. And so that has been really helpful, as well as building out that FAQ page. But no, we have not seen like a floodgate of reports, but the valid reports we're getting has definitely changed and evolved over time because our users are learning how to use it.
I do fear that later today we're going to have to look and see how many illegal car park IR forms have been created in our system, because you're giving people ideas. We're always amazed at what folks use our reporting forms for, and I could see that someone saying, let's use that. That's a good idea.
I would echo what Ileana said. We have not seen an increase that is not manageable. We have had conversation that, again, kind of reiterating what I said, some of these reports, we don't want to park them. We do want to engage right then and there within a few hours, just because we want to take advantage of that person working up the courage to say something and want to talk with someone. So that has not happened a lot, like in those after midnight, before 5 a.m. hours. It's happened a couple times. Staff members did not engage at that point, but they did engage early the next morning. But we have talked about a on-call rotation if we wanted to go that direction, to be able to respond in real time at the time of submission. But at this point, we've not really had to do that. The volume hasn't been such that we needed to have conversation around being on call. So it's been very manageable. And I would say not an increase in anonymous reporting.
I appreciate that. These are obviously two large institutions as well. So I think it's great reinforcement for what otherwise I know is a common question from folks. So thanks for jumping in there. So again, reinforcing this auto reply, very important, the disclaimers, setting the expectations, et cetera. From then you would be able to decide who are the people that have access to the system. As I mentioned earlier, you have that initial intake triage team. Then you have a list of others that you could add in on an as-need basis. Let's add our general counsel. You could assign it to people. So if you want to assign it to a specific role, you could assign it to him or her. They get a notification that they've been assigned something on RealResponse. Everything they've been assigned to is going to show up over here on the left. You can prioritize it. You can label it. All these labels are customizable. So think about the different fields that you might want to be able to track on an annual basis of the types of reports that you receive, right? If you're labeling things well, then the dashboards that we'll show you in a second will be able to reflect all that. And then there's two different types of responses. So these yellow backgrounds, I know many of the Maxient users are already familiar with this terminology, internal notes, things that are not visible to other people, in this example, the anonymous reporter, but a very good way to be able to internally collaborate and put updates, right? Just got off the phone with this person. I have a call next week on this matter. Attachments could be uploaded. Here's an email I received. Here's a text message that I received relevant to this, et cetera. When you're ready to then shift from an internal note to a conversation, you can do so. And now you're able to go back and forth with individuals. So in this example, the head of student conduct has responded back. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention to investigate and address this matter. I need you to provide some more information and answer a few additional questions. Specifically, can you provide more details about this hazing incident? What happened? Who was involved? When and where did it occur? So if you might remember, we went from a very vague report where someone said, there's hazing, to now someone saying it happened at 1 a.m. on Saturday. We were being woke up in the middle of the night. We were being forced to run long distances in the wood while drinking. It was being led by this specific person, one of the chapter's leadership. We got a whole lot of more information now. Do you have supporting documentation? Yes, I took several pictures and videos. Here you go. We see a lot of screenshots of social media posts. We see a lot of pictures, a lot of screenshots of DMs, et cetera. And then this could be sent to the individual as well. So this head of student conduct went from a very vague, incomplete report to now a ton of information. To Matt's comment earlier, I think 7 pages was a personal example that he gave to be able to have as a part of that follow-up moving forward. Attachments can be saved as internal notes. Attachments can also be sent back to the person. So if you guys have created FAQs, resource guides, we hear a lot in the Title IX world, pregnancy resources is a good example of that. You could send all of those attachments back to the person, and it's going to be like they received a picture from a friend. They can just click on it, blow it up, look at the details, click on specific links, et cetera. You could also save templates. So think of templates as being pre-typed out responses for certain types of inquiries that may come through. So making it really easy of not having to recreate the wheel each time, and you could just drag and drop that template as a part of your follow-up. So this is the intake, right? That especially for anonymous reports. This is an additional intake method for receiving the report, responding back, getting the information that you need, and then ultimately moving from a vague report to having something conclusive to be able to act on in an efficient way. That begs the obvious question that everyone identified to me from day one: how do we then get it into Maxient? So working with Aaron and his team now, we have ability to send things directly to Maxient over here on the right. So you click this button and you say, I'd like to send it to Maxient. And what's great is working with his team, and even just the last few weeks, we've created a way now that automatically whatever layout ID you guys have set up in Maxient will be reflected in RealResponse as well. And said differently, you can specify the form as a result that you want to direct this to. And there's another screen I won't show you, but you can even choose the forms that you want to show up here. So if you don't want all your forms to show up here, it doesn't have to. You could specify the handful that you want. And then you could go in and direct the form that you want it to go to. So I want it to go to my hazing form. I want to include the attachments associated with this report, yes or no. So again, that could be attachments that you've uploaded internally. It could also be things that have been sent in by the reporter too. And then do I want to include the internal notes or not, yes or no? So sometimes we hear from folks, I don't need my internal notes to go to Maxient, but I do want them in RealResponse for us to be able to correspond about. So once that's sent to Maxient, then you will have the details over here on the right. Specifically the incident report number, which form it was sent to, the date and time that it was sent, who sent it, were the internal messages included, yes or no, were the attachments included, yes or no. And then if you ever needed to download it, you could do that as well. And then that would show you the PDF that it was sent to Maxient as, and that would have all the details here as well.
And so I'll take it from there. When it comes into Maxient, let me show you, you all will be familiar with what this looks like, because when David indicated you're selecting the form, what you're doing there is you're selecting an IR layout. And you all should be seeing my screen right now. Here I'm logged into a demo university, and on my home screen, I have that RealResponse form that has come in. So it comes in looking just like any other IR that you would get through Maxient. You have all the same actions that you normally have in Maxient. And if you click here on the IR ID, it's going to open up in that separate window. Let me zoom in here just a bit. 1 second. Show you just that window to make it bigger. There we go. So when you click to view that IR in Maxient, you can see what RealResponse does is aggregate the content of that text thread, like David indicated. It's going to bring it in here for you as a PDF, and it's also going to have any of the attachments that were with it. So just a quick example, there's a photo of a snowman in Charlotte during the once a decade snowstorm, right? There we go. So I'm going to turn that back over to you, David. I'm going to stop sharing.
Sounds good. I will quickly address a few questions that have come in. Have you seen any resistance to clubs providing their rosters to deter accountability? You don't have to provide rosters into RealResponse, and that's part of the great thing about it is all you have to have is your external reporting channel set up, the phone number, the email address, the WhatsApp number, etc. And then once someone uses that or sees that rather, then they can just text directly into it and be able to manage it. Ileana or Matt, anything that you guys want to add based on some of the specific functionality I've shown thus far? Not to put you on the spot, but obviously you guys are the day-to-day users. If you think I missed anything that would be helpful for our audience to hear.
It's really intuitive to use on our end, and the students, you know, and we know we could have other reporting parties who are not just students who use this, alumni, chapter advisors, parents, you know, friends could use this as well. But in our day and age, you know, we've proven ourselves during COVID times and also tend to be very adept at using text messaging platforms and social media platforms. So it doesn't appear to be a deterrent for students to be able to text lengthy information back and forth through the platform. They probably do that already in their normal lives.
Yeah, I think for us, I think the read receipts is nice because then you can also look at who's read it. You know, sometimes when you're working with either coaching staff or faculty that you're pulling in, you just want to make sure that they're looking. But I think the priority and the labels have also been really important for us in terms of routing and what workflows we established for the case and that we're going to follow. So that's something that has been really important to us. But it's a great feature. The read receipts, again, going back to that, that's going to let you know whether the student or the reporter, whether you're going to get them back or not, right? If they haven't responded in over half a day or something, then you know, like it's done. For the most part, right? But the nice thing is that you can always go back to it later and continue the conversation. But
a couple of other questions. So we need to set up a separate contract with RealResponse to utilize this. The answer is yes, but I will add a quick disclaimer that if we're already working with athletics and we're working with a lot of athletics, we've been able to leverage that contract and just amend it. So that's saved a lot of procurement red tape and headache of having to go through that. So that's been a very efficient process moving forward. Question from Campus 2 was for campus partners rather. Do you see more text or emails coming through from reporters?
text for us. It's heavily text. We have had a few emails come through, but largely it's texts.
Got it.
I would agree with text. And at this point, WhatsApp is also a possibility. We've not enabled that right now, but we are having conversation that we probably should. And that's really because we have so many international students who utilize WhatsApp as a primary form of communication.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We just had the same conversation on our campus. We had an issue happen in Italy this last week. And so just for communication with the student, that would have made it a lot easier for us too. So
I want to chime in real quick on one question I saw in the Q&A. We're getting a lot of them, so we're trying to keep up with them as best we can. Regarding separate contracts, so David addressed the way contracts work with RealResponse with your campus. This is from Maxient's standpoint, this is an integration with Maxient. So you don't, if you're going to use RealResponse's service, yes, that would be a contract with RealResponse. If you're already using Maxient, your contract with Maxient is separate. The integration, if you you should think of this like an integration that we might have with your police software, for example. So there's plenty of folks out there use a software product in their police department. They will work with that company to ensure that it integrates with Maxient if it's one of the ones that we have an integration with. And those are contracts with two separate software providers. Hope that clears things up more than muddying the waters. But I saw that question, wanted to chime in.
Thanks, Aaron. Another question was, do you recommend setting up RealResponse for a community college that may not see much hazing activity at all? The focus today is hazing, especially obviously in light of the new legislation. We see a lot of non-hazing reports too. I mean, certainly Title IX sexual misconduct, bias, et cetera. So there's a number of areas that this could be utilized and is utilized beyond just the hazing focus.
I will go to bat for RealResponse on that with something from my own experience with Maxient as well. That's a question that we get not infrequently. If I'm at a community college, we don't see a lot of conduct issues. Do you think Maxient would still be valuable for us? Absolutely. And the numbers prove that out. There's so many different ways to use our product beyond what we think of as traditional conduct. And most schools, when they start with one or two purposes, they often grow into several other purposes in the product. And that's kind of the same thing I see here with RealResponse. That's why I dropped the comment earlier regarding HR, because I mean, that's an area we've seen tremendous growth in for our own product. And I imagine the same will be true for you.
Yeah.
I was just going to add, I was like, yes, we use it for our bit team workflow, right? So if you have that and equivalent, it's wonderful for that too. But we're also a campus that has the HR Maxient. And so it just helps that everyone is trained on the same thing. But it's definitely useful past just tasing.
Another question, campuses that have business and healthcare compliance needs as well. Certainly this could be used in a number of those areas. We work with a lot of chief compliance officers and those that are trying to solve some of the gaps of traditional hotlines and some of the inefficiencies there. So this could certainly be leveraged in that space as well for those types of compliance violations and ethics concerns to be reported to. Another question, if a student has utilized RealResponse prior to report and now wants to submit a new report, how would that work? So once a case is marked as closed, and I'll do it here while we're talking, that severs the relationship between that report and that specific phone number. And if the person comes in again, then it creates a new thread moving forward for them to be able to report. We got a lot of questions coming quickly. I'm going fast. Can you talk about the accessibility of RealResponse? We are fully accessible from VPAC compliance. We even have a third-party app that we've installed that allows for accessibility to be done either by the admin or the user as well. So there's different ways to go in there and change the contrast, the screen reader, the highlights, et cetera, to ensure that RealResponse is accessible for all as they're using the system. So we are getting close to time. So I'm going to pull here, and I'd like to end with one last slide for you guys. Couple of call to actions. So number one, we are going to launch a private Zoom poll right now, so no one will see each other's questions. We thought this would be the easiest way for you to express interest in RealResponse. So if you'd like to learn more, you can select two options. Number one, I'd like to schedule a Zoom. Very normal for other parties to be involved in these conversations across many different offices on campus. We are happy to conduct a more detailed Zoom where we can address those questions and give them the opportunity to be more formally introduced to the system. And then the second option is ASCA. So we are going to our first ASCA this week. So excited to see many of you in Portland. Number one, if you'd like to see us there, click yes, and we can schedule an opportunity to connect more formally on site. But secondly, the QR code links to our desserts and drinks reception. So if you would like to get some yummy late night, I think the menu's cookies or brownies or some other things on the sweet side or some adult beverages as well. It's a good opportunity to bring those together, and we'd love to get to know you guys and have the opportunity to meet you there. I know Aaron and some other Maxient folks are going to attend as well. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm 6'9", so I stand out. So if you don't see me at the reception, please come grab me because I'm sure my head will be bobbing above the crowds as well, and would love the opportunity to meet you guys in person. So a special thank you to Ileana and Matt for spending some time today through your busy schedule to come on and share some wisdom and insight with our audience. And Aaron, obviously a special thank you to you as well. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and to work with Maxine. I don't know if you have any other thoughts or insights that you want to share with the group before we depart, but appreciate you obviously helping to pull this together today as well.
I would just say I think this is an integration I'm really excited about. I think it serves a great purpose for our campuses today. It fills a need, and you all have been a great company to work with. So I think if anyone has any questions, I would encourage them to reach out to your team. We will be at ASCA as well. Our socials the following night. Most of you have already gotten your emails about that, so we didn't want to muddy the waters, but we look forward to seeing you in Portland later this week. Thank you all for your time today.
Thank you, guys. We'll leave this up in case anyone needs the QR code, and then we'll close the Zoom here shortly. We're going to leave the QR code up for about 30 more seconds and then close it.